And this is something the corporate world is focusing a ton on. It's something we as a firm, and I can tell you as a party, are focusing a lot of time on. Really trying to understand with polling firms, one, how do we create an IGRP or some kind of metric on this scale so we can tell how much online is really good. I think most people in this room have a sense of what 1,000 points get you on TV, right? I think largely. I don't think we have a sense of what is the 1,000-point equivalent online. What's a lot? What's a little? How do I try to understand that? And I think that's a really important metric for us as we go forward. And so one of the things that we're really working on with partners, and particularly with polling firms, is to try to figure out, one, we already know the cost of what it takes to reach people online, and thanks to ComScore and others, which are tracking vendors, we know reach and frequency and that sort of thing, which is really important. But the piece we don't know necessarily is how many impressions, how many views of an ad does it really take to get the same impact as television or as other mediums? And that's something we're really close to answering. And I think they're not the same thing. One, probably a traditional banner ad echoes a TV ad in a way that a pre-roll video ad is much the same persuasive value of television. So that's part of the challenge, is that there's not just one thing online. There are actually a lot of different pieces. But we're pretty close to trying to have real IGRP numbers, and I think it's when you start to look at your investments through those kinds of terms, we can start to make much more educated decisions to understand what we're spending online, what we're spending on TV, what we're spending on mail, what we're spending on field. And then the third question is it working? I've done a lot of campaigns for people over the last couple of years. The ones that I feel best about are where we were able to have this conversation before the campaign started. Where we were able to say, look, what is your real goal and how are we going to measure success? And often, my favorites are, if you have a problem, like you need to register voters, you need to get a message out, how would you have otherwise done this before online, and what does it cost you to do it? Because we can try to measure against that and put some really hard numbers to it. The reason I said I like measuring online in offline is that I'm sure many people have come to you and said, we just got this many email addresses, which is closer to a hard thing. We just got this many clicks. We just even got this many fans. Or our click-through rate was 0.08%. And you're like, that sounds pretty bad. You're telling me that's a good thing. I think we have to start talking to people, and that is a good thing, by the way. But we have to start talking to people in terms they understand and measuring ourselves against those standards. So what does it take to move poll numbers from a persuasion standpoint? We can really measure that, particularly if we're really tied in with the larger operation. What does it take to raise $1, right? What is the lifetime value of people that we bring in online? Not just what does it cost us on a click, not just what does it cost us to even get that email address, but what is it actually worth to us? What does it cost to get a vote? And these are numbers we're really making progress on. Right, that's the question, right? And so let me, for instance, the Rahm Emanuel campaign, which some of you may have been involved in, this crazy race in Chicago over the past couple days, weeks. Chicago's early voting laws changed dramatically over the past 2 years. What we were able to do in terms of getting people to download their absentee ballots, to actually fill them out online, and we could, to actually find out their early voting location and times, and measure that cost, and then track the back end of how many of those people actually then submitted their absentee ballots, and we can start to put really hard cost per votes on these things. And when we look at where our exit polls were on election day, and when we look at the percentage of vote that we ended up getting, there is no question that without that early voting program, it could have been a very different election. And at the end of the day, when we start to look back at campaigns, we start to look at really share a vote. I can tell you how many people we brought in. In Obama, for instance, I can tell you that on election day, there were multiple states where more people looked up their polling place location or information and times through our system and through online marketing than was the margin of victory. We can really start to look at how big is the size of our social media following, and what percentage of our vote is that? And start to really put some dollar figures to this to say, wow, maybe it shouldn't just be that intern in the corner. Now we're talking 30, 40, higher percentages of our votes. We got to start to make our investments start to match that. And not just the investment in dollars, but the investment in time from our candidates and our senior staff, because that integration is really critical. So those are my 3 questions. Happy to take more as we go, but want to pass it over to Rich to go a little more in depth.
Okay, there's always one guy in the room that has to do PowerPoint, and that guy is me. I think when I proposed to my wife, I had a well-prepared PowerPoint presentation. So, Rudy Giuliani call? So we're talking about innovations in new media. And I thought I picked the appropriate graphic based on what Andrew and Becky shared with us, and that's this question of integration. I think that we're getting closer, okay, but it's not perfect. Over the next 90 minutes, if I'm successful when you leave here, you'll be able to build a website. No, I'm kidding. That's not what we're going to do, okay? I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this New Yorker cartoon. Maybe a show of hand with the hand that doesn't have the fork in it. A lot of people saw this in 1993. It's a famous New Yorker cartoon. Becky talked about Eric and Hyperlocal. The quote was, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. Well, it's been 18 years, and this is my dog. This is my dog, Roxy. She's a golden doodle. And this is what we know about Roxy if she's on my computer. We know that she lives in the Pennsylvania 13th District in the 19002 zip code. Roxy's a registered Republican in a high net worth household. She's 50 to 54 years old, teenagers in the home. She's a professional in technology, interested in politics, and is currently shopping for a car. So if you want to know what they, or Eric Frenchman, or I, or some of the other professionals that practice this know about you, I'd invite you to go to this site, privacychoice.org. It's a nonprofit. I have no financial interest in it whatsoever, but it can expose to you how much they know about you, and it can also sort of freak your children out if you go on their computer and see what their interests are online. So part of what we're going to talk about today on the panel that we've heard is this idea of convergence. This is a bit of an eye chart, but basically we've got lots and lots of demographic and behavioral information about you. We also have the ability to provide real-time messaging. So, by gender, if we want to put up one message to one gender and a different message to another gender, we can do that. Then we have all kinds of platforms where we can deliver this message. It can be online display or video, search, mobile, or social media. The topic of today's luncheon is innovations in new media and where we're going. Probably the most successful investor in this space is John Doerr at Kleiner Perkins, and he calls the future SLOMO, which is social, local, and mobile. Okay, I would take SLOMO, social, local, and mobile, and I would add this whole concept of personalization to the example. We're currently working with the United States Marine Corps, HUA, and they've asked us to help identify a bunch of different audiences. And this is one of the heat maps that we used for the Marine Corps. This identifies by density of retired Marines, as well as ethnic neighborhoods for diversity recruiting of officers. And what's interesting about this mapping technology is we can deliver the advertising based on where the density is. And we can drill down, so in Washington, the Marine Corps is looking to attract younger people who have over-indexed for bachelor degrees, and this is what the map looks like. And that's all kind of fascinating, but what's more interesting is that we can actually deliver ads right into those neighborhoods, right down to the ZIP +4 level of targeting. So the first lesson, and I'm going to share 3 with you today, is that the internet has matured from this anonymous surfing to really precision-targeted media and hyper-local. I know Becky's going to talk more about that. And sophisticated online marketers are not buying sites anymore and hoping that the audience is there, okay? They're buying specific audiences in very specific geographies and delivering very specific messages. Okay, so 4 to 6 weeks ago, I was looking to book a trip to Puerto Rico with my family. My web experience, I was being presented with all these ads for Miami and for the Florida Keys and the Bahamas, right? That's not an accident. Others in this room probably did not see a lot of ads for Miami and the Florida Keys and the Bahamas. You fast forward a couple of weeks later, now I'm looking for a car, and every ad I see happens to be an ad about a car. That's not an accident. That's using some of the behavioral data and the demographic data to make sure that the message is getting to the right audience. Don't know how many of you read either of these books, The Wisdom of the Crowds, 2005, or the more recent book, Crowdsourcing, The Power of the Crowd. They're both fascinating books. I'd like to take a little license here and call it The Wisdom of the Cloud, okay? And basically, the cloud is just a metaphor for the internet. When you're checking your Gmail online, you're checking your mail in the cloud, okay? If you're on Expedia, you're booking your travel in the cloud. So, Wisdom of the Crowd's great book says in 1906, 800 people entered this contest to guess the weight of a slaughtered cow, okay? And a guy by the name of Francis Galton ended up collecting all of the guesses. And collectively, the average guess was 1,197 pounds, and the actual weight of the slaughtered cow was 1,198 pounds. And the crowd did not consist of butchers. It didn't consist of professionals. These were doctors and lawyers and pharmacists and farmers and regular lay people. So it's like, does the crowd know more than any individual expert? Fast forward to 1986, 74 seconds after the Space Shuttle Challenger lifted off, it blew up. Okay, a horrible day for America. Within an hour, the stock market had identified Morton Thiokol as the offender. 6 months later, after a lot of study, NASA concluded what the stock market knew in an hour. More examples of the wisdom of the crowd. Our sponsor this afternoon, Google, was started by 2 PhDs who invented an algorithm that said what sites are more relevant. And the beginning of that search algorithm was who links to these sites, who gets the most links, referring links it's called. It's another kind of wisdom of the cloud. Today they're the largest and most valuable media company in the world. And in 2008, we were working with the Chris Christie campaign in 2009. And when the campaign was over, we took a look at the ads that were run for the Christie campaign, and they matched identically with the exit poll results. I said, that can't be an accident, okay? Fast forward to the midterms, we've got 1 billion political ad impressions. We dropped 100 million cookies on people using their voter registration data. And so maybe if 800 people can guess the weight of a cow, maybe 100 million people and 1 billion impressions can tell you something, right? Or as Yogi Berra said, you can observe a lot by watching. This is how we watch, I think, in the political world, right? The dirty little secret is that many of the campaigns don't ever look at the data that's coming back, okay? It might be interesting to you if your Facebook likes are increasing on a particular issue. There might be gold in them thar hills, but you have to open up the book. You have to look at the data. So here's the first words of wisdom. What one word, based on 1 billion impressions and 100 million voters, will kill any chance of somebody donating to your campaign? Donate. Okay? I don't know why that's the case. I just know that we've looked at the data exhaust of all kinds of online fundraising efforts, and if you put this word in the banner or in the search term, it's over. I also looked at the data, and the 2 worst days nationwide to raise money online, Saturday and Sunday. I can't tell you why. I can tell you that the crowd is telling us they do not want to give money on the weekends. Maybe Monday when they're back to work, but not on the weekends. And the third thing I can tell you is for the creative types out there that have a killer banner, okay, that your campaign loves, your candidate loves, if it's been shown to me 6 times, and I'm the average me of 100 million people, and I haven't clicked on it, the odds are it will never, ever, ever be clicked on. So please don't spend any media dollars with me running the same creative a 7th, 8th, and 9th time if it hasn't been clicked on.